Dean Anderson said something earlier about having surrogate parents and surrogate family to push you. My church families heard me tell the story many times. I never forget, I was sitting in an English class in my high school, in Gretna High School, and my teacher always had a way, she always made certain comments about certain texts. Maybe it was Macbeth or something, and she would say, this is for you that are going to college. She said, you need to know this. And so, you know, students would write, and I'll never forget that one day I raised my hand in class, and I asked her, I said, what did you say again? She said, no, this is for those who are going to college. And that day I quit. I went to school, but I disattached myself from, you know, everything then went over my head. I stopped trying. I think it's important for us to understand that expectation is the breeding ground for miracles. And I think when we look at the challenges of education and looking at poverty and the economical situations of some of our students, and some of you feel called to go into teaching, yes, there are giants over there, but we are well able. We are well able to possess this promise, and this promise for our future generations. But expectation, I have seen what it has done when we have built a community for our, even in our church when we started the scholarship program, when there was a community of people who expected the child to do well. You know, that child knew that not just leaving home, I would be escaping that expectation, but even among my friends, even among my church family, even among my mom's friends, everyone is asking me, how am I doing in school? I never forget, even when I wasn't doing good in school, I wanted my mother to come to school. I know it sounds crazy, but the attention or that sound of someone cares about how good I do. See, when that teacher said, this is not for you, I took that and I heard that. Imagine how much more strong it would be when someone speaks a positive word and said, even though you didn't do good this 6 weeks, I expect you to do better. I watched some days at our scholarship programs when we are having a history lesson or an English lesson with the students, and I would watch one of the young men just keep writing, and he kept balling his paper up and threw it away. And he wrote again, and he teared it out, and he balled it up and threw it away. And I finally told him, I said, you know what, I like your handwriting. I said, your handwriting is so much better than mine. He's like, well, not this junky stuff. I said, I'm telling you, your handwriting is so much better. And I said, but if your handwriting is messy like that, see, that's a doctor's handwriting. You know, we have to learn how to take what they look as challenges and look at them as opportunities. That your story is a story in the making. You know, I was sitting here laughing a little earlier and just smiling and trying to be in good decorum because I was sitting here with a nice attire on. But I was just having so many flashbacks of my mother's here tonight. I won't point her out. She'll point herself out shortly. But my mother always told us, it was my grandmother never went further than the 3rd grade because the school was so far away and they had to go to the black school, and it was so far away, they lived so far down in the country. When the young men didn't walk to her school turned 14, they stopped going to school to work on the farm. So my grandmother couldn't go to school. My grandmother didn't go past the 3rd grade. I want you to know I was almost an adult before I knew my grandmother could not read, because she was an excellent businesswoman. And she drove for years. She had a wonderful, prosperous business in Gretna. She drove. She never had a driver's license. But she was a member of the Chamber of Commerce, so they knew she had a license. And my mother, that's my grandmother. And it was so awesome for me to take my grandparents when the help came out in the movie theater, and I took them. And my grandmother told me, she said, I clean people's homes. She said, so I expect my grandchildren to do great. My high school principal, Mr. W.C. Scruggs, my grandmother raised him. She was their nanny. And she says, I expect you. That expectation, my mother says, their only expectation was to get out of high school and to get a job. No one really talked about college, talked about school. And that's why in our community, just starting in our small nucleus, you know, we talk about church all the time. Jesus says, After that, the Holy Ghost has come upon you. You shall have power, and you shall be witnesses unto me in first Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the uttermost parts of the world. Sometimes when we look at the big challenge, we get overwhelmed. But we can start in our Jerusalem. Whatever your Jerusalem is, whatever those children are around you, you know, they may not have someone to push them, but you're available. You're available. If you see, I didn't want to come to this symposium tonight if we were just going to talk about the problem. But after we diagnosed the problem and we've seen the problem, I have traveled all over this world, and I go to India and I see these, I go to China and I see the vigor and the advancement, and we even have faith in their children. We talk about what their children are going to do. But let me tell you something. I don't see a problem. I see a problem solver. I see Jesus in the midst of this. And I see him going to raise up. We did not sing the Star Spangled Banner just haphazardly tonight. I think when we're sitting here talking tonight, we're believing God to raise this country up in this future generation. And it's going to be called this incubator of expectation. I mean, we're going to walk out of here, we're going to expect our students to do well.
I think the key word that we heard was community. And I'm going to say something controversial. I just can't handle it anymore. You know, the trend in education in the United States has been going away from community. It's been going toward a centralized, top-down, somebody over there's got an idea for us over here. And I think that's when that first question that you asked, I think that's part of the problem. I'm not saying that that's the only problem. I think that's part of the problem, because when you take the decision making outside, away from a community, then they don't care anymore. They don't care anymore. And so you can ask teachers here in the local schools how much they actually care about those tests. Well, they care about it as much as, you know, they like their jobs and they like their schools to stay open and they like those kids to pass on. But I promise you, if you empowered those teachers, right? If you empowered them to say, okay, you're in charge of teaching these students, and you empowered that principal to do whatever it took to have that smaller community rise up, strengthen each other, empower that local school board to make decisions on behalf of those students, I bet those schools wouldn't be dropout factories anymore, because they're empowered to make those decisions. It's tough to have empathy when you're 2,000 miles away making decisions. Exactly. And so when you have power in a community to make decisions on the behalf of the children, that's where you get education. Education is not top-down, it's not a test, it's one-to-one, person-to-person. It really is making disciples in the best possible way. And so I'm about to start. Bishop, do you know what I mean? But community is what that's about. Community is what that's about, and that's not you know, in Washington or even in Richmond. It's right here in Lynchburg. It's right here at Heritage High School, Dunbar Middle, wherever that community is. We know the names of those children, and we care about them. That's what makes education work.
I think we have, and again, out in the audience, feel free to ask if you have questions or comments.